Okay, well, this is Gray from Coremud. Um, Literally, it's coremud.org. And I was asked recently by someone on LinkedIn. He's a programmer, and he asked me, how would one go about hosting a MUD? Um, it's actually kind of a difficult question to accurately or succinctly talk about. Um, One of the key takeaways here is the architecture. It consists of two things. Um, it consists of what is called the game driver, so that is compiled C++ code, and then we have what's called the MUD lib. I'm going to type it on my screen here so you can see how it's spelled. So it is MUD lib, and that is what players interact with inside the game itself. Um, Typically, what I would recommend is research. Just put this in DuckDuckGo, that word mudlib. Maybe some people pronounce it mudlib, but it's essentially the virtual file system that's inside. It's a physical file system, but it's what we see when we're in the game. So a normal player will never see the back-end code, and they don't even understand how the server is hosted, because they just interact with the game world that has been created. Um, so you would typically, there's a bunch of different varieties of mudlibs out there, and what I would advocate is just do some searches. You're looking for, there's a variety of them out there, and you actually start by picking the mudlib first. And once you pick your mudlib and it's got the features that you want, then you go find a compatible game driver and you have to compile it. So you will need, here's the infrastructure you're going to need. You will need a compiler. You obviously, you're going to hit, potentially, you may hit issues as you're compiling. It depends on your operating system and what version of the C compiler and linker that you have. Um, Most, and I can't speak for the community as a whole. Um, Traditionally, MUDs have been hosted on Linux servers. It could be a virtual server, that's fine. Cool. It is possible to some members of the game, I've given them login sounds. Nice. Streaming and recording. So this is the channel used by the coders. Okay. So typically, it's going to be a little easier to do it on a Linux machine because it's so easy to get the free compilers. If you are doing it, if you're going to try to do it on a Windows box, I'm going to have to mute this. Okay. So you need a server to host it on. Your server, you can play around with it on a machine that just has your internet connection is DHCP. You can do all of your development offline. But if you want to actually host a game that people can access, you're going to need to have a static IP and a domain. Although it's possible to do it just through an IP address. But it's a nicer experience if the players, you can tell them coremud.org port 4000. You pick and choose what port you want it to be running on. There's actually in my driver that I have, um, we're bound to 2 ports. So we have the primary port that players log in as, and then there's a back-end service that does DNS lookups for the game, and that runs on another port. So you can pick and choose what ports you want to use for these things, and different drivers may or may not have additional things. So that's your back-end infrastructure. You need a server. Doesn't need a lot of disk space. See, I've got mine downloaded to my computer for reference purposes, and if I go to my documents and I go to I've got it off of the root. So let's see how big this thing is unzipped. It's not terribly huge, so this is like half a gig, and this is a functioning game that people can log in and play. And this is basically what you get with the MudLib. Sorry, you can't see this pop-up window. I'm sorry. It's saying, I just check the properties, and it's saying 555 megabyte is how our MudLib is currently consuming on the disk. And then the driver that we are using, what do we got here? Oh, I need to get a copy of it. We just recently recompiled and we changed drivers. The driver we were using up until about 3 weeks ago, that driver's no longer being maintained. So we changed direction a little bit, and we found a driver that is actively being maintained. And one of the developers who works on that is actually open to answering questions and stuff. That driver is called Fluff OS, spelled this way. So there's different versions of it out there. But again, the MudLib that you pick is going to dictate what driver you're going to use. So it's kind of like, it's akin to asking me, hey, how do I set up a database server? Well, which route do you want to go? Do you want Microsoft SQL? Do you want, MySQL? Do you want Oracle? And that's equivalent to the game's driver. The game is, by the way, doesn't have a database, at least not this one. Everything's all based on flat files. So you want to find a driver that's being actively maintained, and you want to find a MudLib that is pretty solid and stable. So the MudLib, what it is, like I said earlier, it is what the players interact with. So the code specifies how a room works, how monsters work, how the player's living object works, weapons, armor. Some will have a bank. Some will have an example shop. Excuse me. I'm still recovering from an illness, so apologize if I am making any weird sounds over here. So a number of the MudLibs that you can get will have kind of like a stock vanilla world that's small. So they're usually like, and this goes back decades. The MudLib that we're using is based off of prior work done by a gentleman named Lars Pensky. And so it was called, back in the day, it was called LP Mud, because he uses initials of his name. It has since been retooled, revamped, lots of improvements. The LP Mud, if you can find a copy of it, it is stable. There's not a lot there in that stock world. it's not loaded up with weapons. There's just like a wooden stick and a knife and a sword, and that's what you get in that starter mudlet. Um, there's one that I experimented with a few years back where there was nothing stock. I had to basically write everything from scratch. Um, so the store command, like you see the score command on my screen, um, who's logged in, those types of commands. Combat, I had to write from scratch in this. I don't know if they're still maintaining it. Um, that one was called Dragon Lib, but that one is not. I don't know that that's being maintained anymore. I think it was kind of an experiment. But there are a number of things that you can pick and choose from. Um, so just do your research and be prepared to spend some time on this project if you want to go down this path. So you can see that if you have a proper client, like I'm using, and Putty, you could use Putty, except Putty doesn't really give you that input bar unless I couldn't find the option. So you want to be able to type while the game is talking back to you and not have your typing be interrupted. This one that I'm using is called Mudlet. It's I'm actually very new to this particular client. I've been using Portal for years and years. Um, Portal, I don't think it's being maintained anymore. Um, they, the creator of Portal made it open source, but you have to compile it. So it's like all this Delphi code. And I've noticed, and what I recently downloaded from makers of Portal, this is their website, gameaxle.com, or you can just, if you Google Portal, it's not gonna be easy. So you need to like Google or DuckDuckGo Portal game client if you want to try it out. But unfortunately, we've been seeing lockups. So we re-downloaded the latest and greatest version of Portal. On occasion, the client will lock up, and you can't even click the X at the top right corner to dismiss it. You actually have to go into your task manager and kill it, terminate the task. So I am experimenting with this mudlet. So you're going to need, if you're going to develop a mud, you will need a client. Again, you can certainly do it in Putty, but I would not advocate that. I mean, Putty's fine for hopping on the server and editing code. It is, if you're going to go with a Linux server, another thing that you're going to need to do is that you're going to have to open up the SSH and SFTP ports, port 22, because it's easier to edit code on your desktop and then transfer it to the server, because otherwise you're going to be doing VI or some other pure text editor that is a learning curve for some people. If you're comfortable with using VI, I mean, I use it all the time, so it works. And for a quick little change, I can hop on the box and I can VI a file. And if I do quick little edits, if I'm going to do anything substantial, like pages and pages of code that I need to write, yeah, it's going to it's an easier experience if you do it on your desktop and then transfer it using secure FTP. Which brings me to another point. You do need a decent text editor, one that has syntax highlighting. The code inside the mudlib itself is it's a language called LPC. And it's a .c extension on the file. You pull it into an editor like Notepad++, and it'll highlight it for you. What else can I tell you? So it's just getting a server, and you can, if you have sufficient disk space on your computer and sufficient spare RAM, you could spin up a, Oracle VirtualBox, install a Red Hat Linux, Enterprise Linux 7, and that'll give you what you need. And you can get it for free. So Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7 is available. You do have to register on Red Hat's developer program. Someone's pinging me here. And once you do that, you're good for a year. And then when the year is up, you just, re-register. You really don't get support, but you get access to the knowledge base and the forums. So with the free subscription for Red Hat gives you the ability to download the software, and you can run Yum updates to keep it up to date, because it is being, Red Hat 7 is being actively maintained. Don't get any version of Linux that's 6, because that's out of support, or it's coming out of support very quickly. I'd have to go back and DuckDuckGo the expiration dates, but it kind of depends on what subscription you purchased. But yeah, I think Red Hat 6, Oracle Linux 6, anything that's based off of Linux 6 is coming out of support. So if you're going to go with a Linux server, get 7. I don't know if 8's out yet, but I can tell you Red Hat 7 is being actively maintained. I can get the patches for it. I can get compilers you're going to need. Whether you're on Linux or Windows, you will need not only a compiler, but you're going to need certain libraries. So the libraries that you get out of the box are not sufficient to compile the game driver. You do have to download the developer packages. So there's about, oh gosh, I've lost count, but easily it has to, the dependencies will download dozens and dozens of packages. So standing up your server, you're going to have patience. A good connection to the internet will help you download those packages quickly. And then, like I said, once you have the game driver up and running, and you point it at the mudlib, so the driver and the mudlib live in separate directories. So you got the driver, and all the driver files are self-contained in one folder. And then the mudlib is separate. So I'm going to review a little bit. So I'm obviously a developer in this mud, and when you're a coder, you get all the nifty tools. So inside the game world, if you have coder access, you have Linux commands. So you need to be fluent in Linux. So you can't do dir. So it's all the Linux stuff is out there. Or I'm not going to say all, but you've got ls, cd, grep. What else is out there? Let's see. So like all the Linux stuff is in its own folder. So some of these you're going to recognize, and some are unique to MUDs. So like eval is unique to MUDs, and there's other things out here that is unique to MUDs. But you get some, you actually get the Linux style man pages for the out-of-the-box calls, depending on what mudlib you get. So the mudlib will, if it's a decent one, will come with man pages, so you can man all the pre-built accounts. sorry, pre-built pre-built functions. So another important thing to know is that you have two types of functions within the game. So you have the functions that come with the driver itself that are exposed to the game, and then you can make your own inside the game. And that's, in my view, that's easier than try to create new new source code in the driver directories. So it's so much easier if you just do it within the game. So another point, in different, now, and you're seeing core was derived from the Nightmare mudlib, and I think that is no longer available for distribution. So there's Nightmare 2 is I think fallen out of favor, and Nightmare 3 is, I believe, the latest one, but I don't know if it's allowed to download it anymore. The person who was primarily responsible for creating and publishing that code has stopped maintaining it, and at one point there was, some forum posts or whatnot that, he basically said, I'm pulling this from distribution or redistribution. So so not a whole lot. I don't know. I'd have to count. Let's talk about the number of MUDs out there. So you can see in my screen, so there is a network server where any MUD that has what's called Intermud 3 enabled, they ET phone home. So you can see there's 5,354 MUDs out there that are alive. And what is this? I2? Yeah, I2 is an old protocol, so you can see nobody's using it. It is something that you have to deliberately turn on, the Intermud 3. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to talk to players, or usually coders, in the other MUDs. So there is a built-in chat. You can see here and this number has really grown, so I don't know what happened, but there's 175 channels in this Intermud 3 system. In core, Intermud 3 is only exposed to coders, so regular players don't have that. I could give it to them, but then I'd have to explain it. So right now there's no one screaming for it, so we're just kind of leaving it alone. So in a stock MUD, and the folder structure is going to be different from one MUD lib to the next. So if I go out to the root, so again, this is inside the mudlib. The MUD doesn't see any of the driver source code. You can only do that on the server itself, or you can download it to your desktop and crawl through it. So we we created some of our own folders that you'll typically get a central location for logs, a central location for temporary files. Every coder gets their own home directory, just like you would get in Linux. So this is my home directory. So every coder has their own subfolder underneath /realms. Different MUDs will handle this different ways. So in some MUDs, you don't have realms, you have domains or something else. It can be any arbitrary thing you want. So I hope this video has been helpful. Let me get back to my streamer here. Top right-hand corner of my stream is a project that I'm working on. So we have this mothership, an enemy mothership that was created years ago, and I'm retooling it to be instanced. So when a player wants to go in there and romp a bit with the monsters inside, they can get their own unique copy of it. So it's a system I came up with. I'm pretty happy with it. Where am I? Let me get back to my, I have to pull this thing back up to the foreground. Okay. Yeah, and coders will see the file name that they're sitting inside the room. And this is an instanced area because you see pound and a sequential number automatically assigned by the game. So we have at core we have 3 virtual types of areas. All that had to be written from scratch. So the idea is that I can move around. So personal mining dome is what we call it. So anyone who has the in-game credits to purchase one, they get their own personal mining dome, and they plop it down on the outside wilderness grid. And that's a second type of virtual area that we have in the game. That was created from scratch. And then the third type is our mines. Every personal mining dome will get the ability to buy a mine. And the mine is virtualized, and players can expand it. So they can make it any shape. They can make it go as deep as they want to. You can see the top level has been pretty much cleared out, but I do have, let's find a way down. Where is, oh, here it is. Okay. So let's just drill. So mining works on a timer. So every cycle is 60 seconds. Combat is also, timer based. Pretty much all MUDs have that. If combat is a feature of the game, and then that will be on a timer. And in the config, you set the heartbeat interval for the game. So anything that is a timed event will be checked at that interval. I think right now we are using 1.5 seconds is our heartbeat. There we go. So I got some more. And right, I need to upgrade my satchel. So the mining system is the third type of virtual area, as I described, and that had to be written from scratch. So you can do a lot of things if you have the imagination and a direction in mind for the game. So that is important, in my view, to have a clearly stated direction of the game. The first iteration of Core, going back to, what was it, 1995? 1996 is when we went live. At that time, there was really, I mean, we were a sci-fi MUD, but I'm gonna make my helmet. And yeah, I didn't get that. Oh, okay. I'm not wearing the mask. Okay, good. Okay. As a coder, I can destroy items using the desk command, so that'll stop this annoying message. So yeah, so a lot of what you see, a lot of what you see on my screen in my inventory is all custom code. So our Quest system, I'm very proud of. That's all menu driven, and we now have menu driven area creation. And again, all that was coded from scratch. So I hope this kind of peels back the covers a little bit. I do have a policy. We don't reveal source code on the internet, so I can't show you code. I could, but I choose not to. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. It's just that's our policy. Because our custom content is so unique, we don't want other people copying what we've done and instant game. So and as I said in a previous video, um, right now it's not possible for me to monetize this thing. So there are copyrights associated with the driver and the mud lib that prohibit charging anything. So it's free to play. I do believe that there are some game developers out there who basically wrote all their stuff from scratch, and including the driver, or they're using a driver that doesn't have the copyright associated with it. So it is possible to monetize the thing, but you got to be very careful about how you do it, because you don't want to get into legal trouble with, I wrote this back in 1992 and you're stealing my work. There you go. So apparently Steve is listening. So what I'm going to do, guys, is and gals, is I'm recording what I'm doing here, and I am going to cross post this to YouTube. So it'll be up on the YouTube channel, and then it'll be available on Twitch, I believe, for 30 days. I am looking into creating a channel on Rumble because of what YouTube has been doing over the past weekend. And I don't want to be in a situation where I grow a following and then I get canceled. So I want to have some alternative areas to publish. So I am looking at Rumble. So, okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and be well, and have a good day. Have a good night.